For decades, basketball fans have revered March 2, 1962, as a date that resonates with near-mythic significance. On that day, in a modest arena in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Wilt Chamberlain, arguably the most dominant physical force the NBA has ever seen, accomplished a feat many had deemed impossible, scoring 100 points in a single game. The record has stood ever since, looming so large in the sport's consciousness that it's become synonymous with the very idea of an unbreakable milestone. But beyond the stat line and the famous photograph of Chamberlain holding a slip of paper with 100 scrawled on it lies a story about the nature of Wilt's talent, the quirks of early 1960s pro basketball, and the legacy of a performance that permanently altered how we think about scoring. To appreciate that legendary night, it helps to understand Chamberlain's background and the NBA's climate at the time. Wilt had entered the league in 1959 after dominating at the University of Kansas and briefly in the Harlem Globetrotters. He was an immediate sensation for the then Philadelphia Warriors, using his 7 feet 1 inch frame, remarkable athleticism, and unparalleled strength to shatter scoring and rebounding records from the moment he stepped onto an NBA court. Despite playing in an era without the modern three-point line or sophisticated defensive schemes, Chamberlain's nightly outputs still appeared superhuman. By his third season, he was already averaging over 50 points per game, an astronomical figure that boggled the imagination of fans and sports writers alike. In early 1962, the Warriors remained in contention in the league's East Division, but few could have guessed that a run-of-the-mill matchup against the New York Knicks at a neutral site would become immortal. Due to scheduling quirks, the game took place in Hershey, Pennsylvania, a venue better known for its chocolate factory and amusement park than for world-shaking sporting events. Attendance was modest, with some fans presumably more curious about seeing Wilt in person than expecting any record chase. Little did they know they were on the brink of witnessing the most astounding individual performance in NBA history. From the opening tip, Chamberlain dominated. The Knicks, plagued by injuries and lacking a truly formidable center, tried everything: double teams, rotating defenders, pushing Wilt off the block. None of it worked. Chamberlain soared for dunks, laid in easy putbacks, and hit an unusual number of his once disdained fadeaways and jump shots. His Philadelphia teammate, aware that Wilt was in the zone, began feeding him the ball on nearly every possession, turning the contest into a single-man scoring exhibition. By halftime, Chamberlain had notched 41 points, a total that was already extraordinary. It became clear that something unprecedented was unfolding. As the third quarter progressed, word spread among the Warriors players and the small crowd that a record was within reach. Chamberlain had previously set the single-game scoring record at 78 points, so crossing that threshold now seemed feasible. The Knicks, meanwhile, tried to slow the game by deliberately fouling other Warriors to keep the ball out of Wilt's hands, or stalling on offense. Yet the spectacle rolled on. Warriors coach Frank McGuire refused to ease up, continuing to run the offense through Wilt. Fans, some of whom had left early, rushed back to the arena as they realized the magnitude of what was happening. Eventually, in the closing moments, Chamberlain was perched at 98 points, the crowd on its feet, cheering with an intensity that belied the half-empty building. On a fast break, with time running low, Wilt received the ball in the paint, rose up, and slammed home his final basket. The scoreboard flashed 100, a mark that appeared more like a misprint than an actual total. Stunned teammates rushed to embrace him. A hurried post-game photo featured Wilt, sweat-drenched, holding up a piece of paper with 100 scribbled in pen. Despite the delirium in the gym, the world beyond Hershey would not immediately realize the full gravity of this milestone until reading newspapers and hearing radio reports the next day. In the aftermath, initial reactions ranged from awe to suspicion. Some pundits questioned whether an all-out attempt to pile on points late in the game was unsportsmanlike. Others marveled that Chamberlain, known for his subpar free-throw shooting, had gone 28 of 32 from the line, a major factor in eclipsing the century mark. The lack of a television broadcast or high-quality footage lent the performance an almost mythical air. While official scorebooks and eyewitness testimonies confirmed every basket, the game lacked the visual documentation that has accompanied so many modern records. Over the years, Chamberlain's 100-point game took on a legendary status unmatched in basketball. The record has withstood challenges from scoring savants like Kobe Bryant, who dropped 81 in 2006, and David Robinson, who hit 71 in 1994. No one has seriously threatened to reach triple digits again, reflecting how truly extraordinary Wilt's feat was. While modern pace and space offenses can inflate point totals, the defensive sophistication and athletic equality across today's league make another 100-point outburst highly unlikely. The reverence for that scoreboard number endures as an almost mythic ceiling for individual scoring greatness. Nevertheless, debates persist about Wilt's era. Defenders note that rosters in the early 60s featured fewer teams, meaning more concentrated talent, but also that the Knicks that night were undersized and short-handed. Detractors might argue that the game's final minutes turned into a farce, with everyone fixated on inflating the box score. Yet for all the disclaimers, the achievement stands. No subsequent era's improvements in fitness, training, or strategy have produced a challenger capable of matching the round figure that Wilt Chamberlain etched into memory on March 2, 1962. Not to be overlooked is the broader impact of Wilt's monumental performance on the NBA's popularity. At a time when pro basketball still lagged behind Major League Baseball and college sports in the American psyche, this outrageous scoring exploit drew mainstream attention. Chamberlain's name became synonymous with offensive dominance, overshadowing even the best big men of his time. While Bill Russell's Celtics outshone Wilt's teams in championship rings, Chamberlain held this iconic record, demonstrating that individual brilliance could transcend the championship debate. Fans flocked to see the man who had once scored 100 points in a regulation game, hoping for a glimpse of similar magic on any given night. Indeed, Wilt's 100-point game underscores the essence of basketball's storytelling. He did it without three-point shots, shot clocks artificially inflated to create pace, or social media to amplify the hype in real time. His supporting cast had no illusions about the historic nature of the night. They simply fed their unstoppable center until the final horn. That combination of unstoppable skill, an accommodating moment, and a willing cast of teammates fused into an achievement that would become part of basketball folklore. Today, Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point benchmark stands as a near-sacred symbol, reminding fans that sometimes a single performance can rewrite what we consider feasible. Whether or not it could ever be repeated, it remains an essential thread in the tapestry of the NBA, a feat that defies the normal boundaries of competition. And while subsequent generations have witnessed astounding displays of scoring, athleticism, and artistry, they still bow to the memory of that night in Hershey, when a towering figure named Wilt soared above every expectation and gave pro basketball its most unbreakable single-game record.